The 8th of April, 1943, 27,000 feet above Caen, France. The cold, thin air of the upper skies is punctuated by the hum of the engines as Oberleutnant Ralph Hermachine gazes down from his cockpit. He knows what he's seeing isn't a threat, or so he thinks. The sight of massive American fighters slowly climbing toward his formation causes him to grin, a smirk spreading across his face. He can't help but laugh. His voice crackles through the radio. DY armies have sent us flying milk bottles, mocking the massive Republic P-47 Thunderbolt street ruggling to gain altitude, their powerful engines struggling against their heavy weight. To the German pilots, accustomed to the sleek, nimble Spitfires and the deadly Soviet Yaks, the P-47 seconds look almost comical. Their massive bodies, large wings, and oversized propellers make them appear sluggish, far from the lethal threats that these veterans had faced in the skies of Europe and Russia. What is this thing? Hermachine thinks as he watches them lumbering upward. But what Hermachine and the Luftwaffe pilots don't know is that these so-called flying milk bottles are about to become their worst nightmare. In just 18 months, this fighter, which many had mocked, would transform from an object of ridicule into one of the most feared machines in the sky. The Thunderbolt would come to define American air superiority, slowly but surely turning the tide of the war in Europe. Major Donald Blakesley, commander of the 335th Fighter Squadron, sees the larger picture. Despite the lack of combat experience among his pilots, he knows the true power of the P-47, and he has a vision for how it will change the air war over Europe. At this moment, however, the men in the sky are still novices. Their aircraft, new and untested, are about to face the formidable Luftwaffe in the skies above Nazi-occupied France. The Thunderbolts, with their monstrous engines and heavy frames, are almost too much to handle. The American pilots, including future aces who would one day be legends in their own right, are about to experience their first taste of combat. But the true power of the Thunderbolt is about to reveal itself in a brutal lesson for the Germans. With each passing day, as the Thunderbolts engage in more combat missions, they'll learn just how much these flying milk bottles can endure. As the P-47 pilots fly into their first engagement with the seasoned German aces, the sky above Caen is about to become a battlefield. The stakes couldn't be higher. This is not just a clash between two aircraft, but between two philosophies of air combat, two armies with vastly different approaches to the war. But even as Hermachine and his fellow German pilots ready themselves for the attack, they can't imagine the incredible resilience and firepower that the P-47 brings with it. The men in the Thunderbolts may be inexperienced, but their aircraft, massive, rugged, and armed with deadly firepower, will prove to be a force to be reckoned with. With a calm, determined focus, Blakesley watches the Germans form up. He knows that today they will discover the true capabilities of the Thunderbolt. The laughing will stop. Soon, they will know what real firepower feels like, and thus, the first clash between the Thunderbolt and the Luftwaffe is about to unfold. But what the Germans don't yet understand is that their enemy has already won half the battle. They've underestimated the true power of the P-47 Thunderbolt. As the sky clears above the hills of France on that fateful April morning, the 16 P-47 Thunderbolts of the 4th Fighter Group ascend through the thin air, their massive Pratt Whitney engines straining as they climb toward the enemy. Their mission, to escort bombers, to clear the skies of any threats from above, and to prove their worth to both the Luftwaffe and themselves. Their commanders, Major Donald Blakesley and other seasoned veterans, understand that this is not just a routine sortie. This is the beginning of something bigger, something that will soon become a defining moment in aerial combat. The Germans, in stark contrast, have been in the skies for years. The Luftwaffe, led by ace pilots like Oberleutnant Ralph Hermachine, has been fighting on all fronts since 1939. Their experience and tactical superiority seem unmatched. The Luftwaffe's aircraft are swift, agile, and lethal, honed through years of combat. These pilots are used to dominating the skies, laughing at the sluggish American fighters they encounter. They are in their element, ready to take down anything that dares to oppose them. However, the P-47 seconds, despite their heavy weight and unrefined handling, are far more formidable than the German pilots realize. Their design may be unorthodox compared to the sleek, nimble fighters favored by the Luftwaffe, but this is where the Thunderbolt's true strength lies, in its power, durability, and incredible firepower. Blakesley's strategy is simple but revolutionary. Don't try to turn with them, don't try to climb with them. Use your weight, use your guns, and above all, use the sheer power of the P-47 to overwhelm them. The American pilots, still new to combat and still learning the full potential of their machines, begin to understand that the P-47 is not built for nimbleness or tight turns. It's built to take punishment, to press the attack, and to deliver a concentrated stream of bullets from 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns, capable of cutting through enemy fighters like butter. The first engagements bring mixed results. The Germans, still dismissive of the Thunderbolt, attempt to exploit its weaknesses attacking from below, where the heavy fighter is most vulnerable. But they quickly discover that the P-47 can absorb far more punishment than they had ever imagined. Each P-47 that returns from combat is riddled with bullet holes, some with over 100 strikes. Yet, these Thunderbolts keep flying. The American pilots, though outclassed in maneuverability, are beginning to realize the true power of their weapons. They are not just flying to survive, they are flying to strike back. As the weeks go by, German intelligence starts to report strange and unsettling findings. The P-47 seconds are difficult to kill. Their ruggedness, previously dismissed as clumsy, is now recognized as an asset. The Thunderbolt's heavy frame and radial engine seem impervious to the kind of damage that would have grounded other fighters. The Germans are shocked to find that the aircraft, despite taking direct hits, return home, often with more holes than a Swiss cheese. The American pilots' tenacity, mixed with the sheer destructive force of their weapons, begins to strike fear into the Luftwaffe's most experienced pilots. And yet, despite this, the P-47 pilots continue to face a steep learning curve. They are still new to combat, and every sortie brings lessons, some of them brutal. The losses are mounting. The early weeks of combat see the Americans suffering heavy casualties, not just from German fire but from accidents. The P-47, with its immense power and sometimes erratic handling, is unforgiving to those who don't fully understand its quirks. The American pilots, however, are undeterred. They know that if they can master the Thunderbolt, it will become their weapon, their advantage. They begin to hone their tactics. Rather than engaging in dogfights, they use their heavy guns to their advantage. P-47's massive .50 caliber guns become a symbol of American firepower, capable of overwhelming enemy fighters with sheer volume. This strategy marks the beginning of the P-47's transformation from a flying milk bottle into one of the most feared and effective fighters in the war. The skies above France are becoming a battleground. The German pilots, who once laughed at the sight of the P-47, are now facing a different reality. The Thunderbolt, despite its size and awkwardness, is proving to be a formidable adversary, and the American pilots, though inexperienced, are starting to turn the tide in a way no one, not even they, could have predicted. They are no longer just flying for survival, they are flying for victory. As the two forces continue to clash, it becomes clear. The P-47 is not just an aircraft, it is the symbol of American ingenuity, determination, and industrial might. The skies above Europe are about to change forever. The 26th of June, 1943, a pivotal day in the skies above Lyon, France. The air is thick with tension, as 48 P-47 Thunderbolts of the 61st Fighter Squadron make their way back from an escort mission. Their job had been simple, protecting the B-17 bombers on their way back to base. But as the formation begins its return, a new danger emerges. 16 Luftwaffe fighter planes, led by the infamous squadron commander, Oberleutnant Wilhelm Galland. The German pilots, veteran aces of the Luftwaffe, are well versed in aerial combat. With their powerful Messerschmitt 109 seconds and Fokker 190 seconds, they dive from above, taking the Americans completely by surprise. It's an ambush. The sky is filled with the roar of engines and the sound of gunfire as the Germans descend in coordinated waves. In the chaos that ensues, Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson's P-47 finds itself caught in the crossfire. The initial attack is brutal. Cannon shells explode across his Thunderbolt, tearing apart his aircraft and shattering his canopy. Johnson is wounded, the cockpit filling with smoke and hydraulic fluid. His aircraft is now a mangled wreck, its engine rattling violently, its controls barely responding. Yet, Johnson refuses to surrender to fate. Trapped in the wreckage, unable to bail out, he must find a way to survive. As the German aircraft pursue their prey, Johnson, against all odds, fights to keep his plane aloft. Unable to see clearly through the oil-smeared windscreen, with his engine on the verge of giving out, he levels the Thunderbolt and turns it toward England. The speed of the plane drops, its power fading, but Johnson's determination remains unbroken. The German pilot behind him continues to fire, emptying his cannon shells into the wounded Thunderbolt. Each strike rips through the air, yet Johnson presses on. The German fighter, unable to catch up, begins to fall back, perplexed by the sight of this indestructible American aircraft. For a brief moment, the two pilots lock eyes. The German, probably still in disbelief, offers a salute before peeling away. But for Johnson, the fight is far from over. With the P-47's engines nearly dead, Johnson limps back toward Manston, England, and the safety of home. His plane is barely flying, but somehow it stays aloft. By the time Johnson lands, his aircraft is nothing more than a flying wreck. Over 200 bullet holes, catastrophic damage to the engine, and a cockpit that has been shredded by cannon fire. Johnson himself, bleeding and bruised, stumbles from the wreckage, alive against all odds. The survival of this battered P-47 sends shockwaves through both American and German forces. For the Americans, it's a testament to the P-47's toughness and durability. For the Germans, it's a brutal reminder that the Thunderbolt is not just another fighter, it's a weapon of overwhelming destruction. The Luftwaffe had underestimated the American war machine, but now they were learning the hard way that the P-47 Thunderbolt was not a flying milk bottle. It was an unstoppable force that could absorb unbelievable punishment and still carry its pilot back home. This event marks a turning point. The P-47's reputation shifts in the minds of both Allied and Axis pilots. The same aircraft that had been mocked for its bulk and lack of agility now becomes one of the most feared machines in the sky. The Luftwaffe pilots who once laughed at the Thunderbolt now face it with growing dread. The P-47, through sheer determination and firepower, is beginning to change the course of the air war. But it's not just the aircraft itself that will tip the scales. It's the courage, resolve, and sacrifice of the pilots who fly them. For men like Johnson, who fought against seemingly insurmountable odds, the P-47 is more than just a machine. It becomes a symbol of American resolve, a symbol that, despite the sacrifices, victory is within reach. The transformation of the P-47 from an object of mockery to a weapon of terror is complete, and for the Luftwaffe, the true nightmare is only just beginning. As the war continues, the Thunderbolt's impact grows. With each mission, it demonstrates not only the power of industrial ingenuity, but also the indomitable spirit of those who fly it. The P-47's reputation becomes legendary, an aircraft that not only survives but thrives in the face of overwhelming adversity. By July 1943, the P-47 Thunderbolt had proven itself not just as a durable fighter, but as a formidable force in the skies over Europe. But this was only the beginning. The months that followed would see American pilots refining their tactics, learning to exploit the Thunderbolt's true strengths, while German pilots, once confident in their superiority, now faced the harsh reality of the new American fighter. It was clear, the Luftwaffe was in trouble. The Thunderbolt's heavy weight and powerful firepower had already begun to change the nature of aerial combat, but as more pilots mastered the P-47, its full potential began to reveal itself. In the hands of experienced pilots, the Thunderbolt's sheer size and strength became its greatest advantages. The heavy armor and powerful guns that had once seemed cumbersome now made the P-47 nearly invincible. Lieutenant Colonel Hubert Zeno, commander of the 56th Fighter Group, had come to realize the key to P-47 success. His first advice to his pilots was simple but profound. Don't try to turn with them. Don't try to climb with them. Use your weight. Use your firepower. The P-47 was a machine that could outfight German fighters when used properly. The massive machine gun firepower, paired with the Thunderbolt's excellent high-altitude performance, made it a perfect long-range escort fighter. But it was the psychological impact on the Germans that truly began to make a difference. While German pilots had once mocked the Thunderbolt, by mid-1943 they were learning to fear it. For German pilots, encountering a P-47 inches combat was an experience that often ended in disaster. The Thunderbolt's concentration of firepower could tear an enemy aircraft apart in seconds. As German veteran pilots admitted later, when the Thunderbolt's 8.50 caliber machine guns opened up, it wasn't just a matter of taking down an aircraft, it was a matter of survival. One German pilot, speaking on the condition of anonymity after the war, recalled the terror of encountering the P-47 for the first time. "We thought it was just a flying tank," he said. "We tried to take it on, but it just didn't break. You could hear the roar of its guns, and then nothing. The aircraft would disappear in a cloud of smoke and fire." On the ground, the P-47 was making a name for itself as an incredible ground attack weapon. The Thunderbolt's massive guns, combined with the ability to carry bombs and rockets, made it the perfect fighter bomber. The Thunderbolt's role began to evolve, as Allied forces needed more than just air superiority. Now, it was tasked with taking out German military infrastructure, including railroads, trucks, and tanks. And the results were devastating. In June 1944, the Allies launched the D-Day invasion. The P-47 played a pivotal role in the success of the invasion, providing air cover for the landings and striking at German supply lines. In just the first month of the invasion, P-47 seconds destroyed thousands of German vehicles, including tanks, armored vehicles, and trucks. The Luftwaffe, already stretched thin, couldn't keep up with the speed and firepower of the Thunderbolts. Every time they appeared in the sky, they struck terror into the hearts of German soldiers below. But it wasn't just the Germans who had to fear the Thunderbolt. In the Pacific theater, the Thunderbolt also found its place. The P-47's rugged construction and long-range capability made it an ideal fighter for the vast distances of the Pacific. Colonel Neil Kirby, commanding the 348th Fighter Group, led his P-47 seconds against the Japanese forces with devastating results. The Japanese pilots, accustomed to fighting nimble but fragile American fighters, were completely unprepared for the Thunderbolt's firepower and durability. By 1945, the P-47 had become a symbol of American industrial power, engineering ingenuity, and military might. It had evolved from a laughingstock to a force that could no longer be ignored. In the face of relentless German and Japanese opposition, the Thunderbolt had become an unstoppable machine. Its 8.50 caliber machine guns, its rugged construction, and its raw power making it the most feared aircraft in the sky. As the war drew to a close, the Thunderbolt's impact on the Luftwaffe and Japanese forces was undeniable. The massive production capabilities of the United States had overwhelmed both the Luftwaffe and the Imperial Japanese Army Air Force. And while the Germans and Japanese had once believed their advanced designs and superior tactics would win the war, it was the relentless industrial strength of the American war machine, embodied by the P-47, that ultimately tipped the scales. The Thunderbolt had defeated its enemies not just through better tactics, but by sheer attrition, firepower, and endurance. For those who flew it, the P-47 was more than just a fighter. It was a symbol of America's ability to overcome any obstacle and achieve victory, no matter the odds. The legacy of the P-47 Thunderbolt didn't end when the war did. The aircraft's impact reverberated far beyond the skies of Europe and the Pacific. By the time the war had officially ended in 1945, the P-47 had already secured its place in history as one of the most significant and versatile fighter aircraft of World War II. But what was even more remarkable was how the Thunderbolt embodied the essence of American resilience, ingenuity, and industrial might. The P-47's legacy was more than just tactical superiority in the air. It was the culmination of American engineering, a machine built from the ground up to survive the harshest conditions. The United States' ability to mass-produce these heavy fighters at an astonishing rate meant that they could overwhelm the enemy, regardless of how technologically advanced the Luftwaffe or the Japanese Air Force became. The sheer volume of Thunderbolts produced 15,683, the most of any American fighter, was a testament to the industrial capabilities that defined the American war effort. It's not just the numbers that stand out. The P-47's reputation for taking immense amounts of damage and still returning home had a profound psychological impact on the enemy. German pilots, who had once ridiculed the flying milk bottles, came to dread the unmistakable sound of Thunderbolts roaring overhead. The 8.50 caliber machine guns mounted on the Thunderbolt created an inferno of firepower, and the combination of speed, durability, and overwhelming firepower meant that the P-47 could outlast and outgun anything the enemy could throw at it. But what truly made the Thunderbolt unique was the human element, the stories of the pilots who flew it. Men like Lieutenant Colonel Robert Johnson, who defied the odds in a crippled P-47, managing to fly back to England despite catastrophic damage to his aircraft. His courage and perseverance reflected the spirit of the men who flew the Thunderbolt. These were not just young men fighting in the skies, they were symbolizing the resilience of an entire nation. The Thunderbolt's role as a fighter bomber was also pivotal. With the addition of bombs and rockets, it proved to be the most effective ground attack aircraft of its time. The P-47 systematically destroyed thousands of German vehicles, including tanks and trucks, crippling their ability to respond to Allied advances. The P-47 was the hammer that smashed through the enemy's defences, opening the way for ground forces to advance. In the years following World War II, the P-47 continued to serve in various capacities, including post-war service in many air forces around the world. But it was during the war that it truly made its mark, and its role in helping to secure victory in both Europe and the Pacific cannot be overstated. The P-47 Thunderbolt not only changed the face of aerial combat but also helped shape the future of air warfare for decades to come. Even today, the legacy of the Thunderbolt lives on. The aircraft's rugged design and its ability to take on any challenge laid the foundation for the fighter aircraft of the Cold War and beyond. In memorials and museums across the world, the P-47 remains an enduring symbol of the American spirit, the unwavering determination to overcome any obstacle, no matter how daunting. In the words of former German pilot Adolf Galland, "We made a terrible mistake in 1943. We saw this big heavy fighter and laughed." The Americans didn't understand air combat. We were the ones who didn't understand. Galland's recognition of the P-47's true capabilities mirrored the shift in perception that occurred within the Luftwaffe. In less than 2 years, the Thunderbolt had gone from a mockery to the most feared fighter in the skies. This transformation was not just about engineering, it was about a relentless will to win, a will embodied by every American pilot who took to the skies in the Thunderbolt. The P-47 Thunderbolt stands as a testament to American industrial power, innovation, and military might. It was a fighter that made history by overcoming every challenge that was thrown its way. And in the skies of Europe and the Pacific, it became the symbol of America's victory. A victory that, in no small part, was achieved because of the P-47's firepower, durability, and unyielding spirit. The P-47 Thunderbolt's legacy is not just one of firepower and victories. It is a story of how innovation, teamwork, and determination can turn the tide of war and change the course of history. As the final American aircraft of World War II flew over the enemy skies, the Thunderbolt left behind a legacy that will never be forgotten.